Stop what you're doing. Stop right now. Turn around, look at the screen, pay attention to what's up here. This is the quadratic formula. If an equation can be put into this form of ax squared plus bx plus c, it can be solved using the quadratic formula. This is a way to solve any quadratic equation. Ready? Here it is. The quadratic formula. If ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and a doesn't equal 0, then x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. The plus or minus means I'm going to take the opposite of b plus the square root, and I'm going to take the opposite of b minus the square root. Remember, if there's a squared term, there's likely two answers. The quadratic formula is one of the most often used and most famous formulas in all of mathematics, and you should memorize it right now, today. Know this. This has got to be in your head. On to the examples. Our first example up is example 3. Example 1. Solve x squared minus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Remember, we're going to use the quadratic formula for this. This is in what we call standard form, where it's set equal to 0. That's what has to be true for the quadratic formula to work. Okay, so if x squared minus 5x minus 24 equals 0, then that means that x is equal to the opposite of b. Well, the value for b is a negative 5. Remember, that's plus or minus. So that would just be 5. The opposite of negative 5 is 5. That's plus or minus. 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is a negative 24. And that's all over 2 times 1. Okay, so I just need to find, I'm going to get 5 plus or minus something. Let's see what we get here. So I got x equals 5 plus or minus, and this is, let's see, 4 times 24 equals 96 plus 25. So the negative 4 times the negative 24 becomes a positive, so that's the square root of 25 plus 96. And that's all over 2. So that means that x equals 5 plus or minus, let's see, 25 plus 96 equals 121. The square root of 121 divided by 2. Well, we know what the square root of 121 is. That's 11, right? Because 11 times 11 is 121. So this becomes x equals 5 plus or minus 11 all over 2. And 5 from 11, or excuse me, a negative 11. 5 minus 11 is a negative 6 over 2. Or 5 plus 11 is 16 over 2. And this reduces to negative 3 or 8. Those are our two solutions. Remember that the equation has to be set equal to 0 to be able to use the quadratic formula. This one, the quadratic formula. If it's equal 0, then this is true. But it has to be equal to 0. Okay, now we're on to the guided example. This is on page 554. 10-meter platform diving gives the approximate height in the equation. This is in meters. They're 10 feet up. They're going up at 4.3 meters per second, and they're being pulled down by gravity. How many seconds elapse from the time the diver leaves the 10-meter platform until the diver hits the water? So they'll hit the water when their height is 0, so we solve this equation for 0. So if 0 equals a negative 4.9 t squared plus 4.3 t plus 10, we apply the quadratic formula, and this is a negative 4.3, the opposite of the b value, plus, I'm going to go over here with this, this is going to be 4.3 squared minus 4 times, what is it? Four times AC. 4A is a negative 4.9. And C is 10. And that is all over 2 times a negative 4.9. So we've now calculate the value under the radical, and we have a negative 4.3. The gravity term is a negative 9.8, and I'm plus or minus about 214.49 under the radical. And so for my answers, I'm going to have plus or minus this 214. It's going to be right in here under the radical. These are the exact solutions to the equation. We may have to stop here. However, people want to know, we want to know the more exact values or street values for it. So there we want to take an approximation. So we have this information. We have that t is approximately equal to, let's see, 14.65 is the approximation. And 14.65, so we're going to be negative 4.3 plus 14.65 divided by a negative 9.8, or a negative 4.3 minus 14.65 divided by a negative 9.8. And we see that we get the t is equal to a negative 1.1, or t is equal to 1.9. Well, there is no negative time. The beginning of time is time 0, and so it makes no sense in this situation. We're only interested in the positive value, and the diver will hit the water about 1.9 seconds after leaving the diving platform. Checking this answer can be done by substituting 1.9 for the equation. Another way to do it is look at a table or a graph and get your answer from that to see whether this approximation is good enough. Okay. One last problem. Example 3. Solve x squared minus 7x minus equals a negative 2. Well, our quadratic formula tells us that ax squared plus bx plus c has to equal 0, and this doesn't equal 0, so what do? Well, we're algebraists. We can use algebra to make it equal 0. So I'm going to have x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals a negative 2 plus 2. I add 2 to both sides. And I get that x squared minus 7x plus 2 is equal to 0. I've now set the equation equal to 0, and I can work forward from this to solve it using the quadratic formula, which tells me that x is equal to the opposite of b, and this is going to be a negative 7, so it's going to be 7 plus or minus the square root of a negative 7 squared minus 4 times AC. A is 1, C is 2. That's going to be all over 2 times A, which is just going to be 2, so 2 times 1. And this is going to equal 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 8 all over 2, and we get then that it's 7 plus or minus the square root of 41 divided by 2. This is our exact answer. If we're asked for that, we would stop at this point. We could get an approximation for this, and in which case we'd like to get that x is approximately equal to let's see, 7 plus 6.4 divided by 2 would be about 6.7. And x is approximately equal to 0.3. So we have our exact answer here, and the x is equal to 7 plus or minus the root of 41 divided by 2, or we get the approximation of the square root of 41, which is about 6.4, and we subtract that to get 6.7 or 0.3. That's it for the quadratic formula. Remember that you need to put it into the standard form of a quadratic equation in order to apply the quadratic formula. And that's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a doesn't equal 0, and we then know that x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Good luck on the mastery quiz. See you in class.